we need to have Abo Sester who never get into a car that's passing by. That needs to be the value. It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's a GTI, M4, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? We need to have our brothers that never see themselves objectifying women. The type of men that date women because they give them money. You know what I mean? They throw money at them. They treat them like possessions. And one day it's all lovey-dovey. The next day, our sister is dead like a dog. So right now, what they're doing by going overseas to speak to Trump and whoever his right-wing advisors are is treasonous. You know what I mean? It's the exact same thing as AfriForum. And they're doing this because they know that their views are not popular in South Africa. So for the black people that are observing this, you need to understand that the white supremacists have given up.
Thank you guys for showing us love on Saturday at the Radio 2000 Family Day. It was really dope to do our first official pop-up store for the MacG's Kitchen. We got a lot of love. We sold out all the food, all the platters. You guys are loving the menu. You guys are founders or are co-founders of the brand. That's what we'll call you, our co-customers. Our first 1,000 customers. We registered each and every client that bought MacG's Kitchen this past Saturday. So we will be doing pop-up kitchens at different events throughout the country. We'll also be at a lot of street food markets. You can order us online starting from Easter Monday. You can go to Uber Eats and order the menu from MacG's Kitchen. Welcome to MacG's Kitchen. Starting from Easter Monday, you can go all the way straight to your Uber app and start ordering our menu. Check out our menu. Let us know what you think. Taste it when you do get your deliveries. Take a picture or some videos and share it on your social media platforms under the hashtag MacG's Kitchen, because you guys have been asking for the food that we cook here. We've just had some great lunch, me and my buddy. It's NOTA Mondays. We're just coming out straight out of the long weekend, and we're about to sing 1, 2, 1, 2. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear NOTA. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, NOTA.
Danko, ish. Yeah, I'm no longer a youth. I'm 35 now.
35.
Yeah.
But according to the
so
you're still the youth.
So Usis Mandisa Mashego must accept Usiswam Gemach.
Mama, uncle.
I never Usis. I sing that 35 in Tala Pilla.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Ben Bugele Labafana be pirates, Esabayajala Labafana, yes.
The boys that
Linda and Liz the pirates, I know the young cousin, Donna's the pirates. I say, we into Ananagi manje. I'm at that age, you know, that age when soccer players becoming Anna.
Yeah, then you're a Groot man.
I thank you.
How does it feel, bro?
Hey, to be a Groot man. Yeah, ish. Yeah, no, it's good. It's nice. I'm relieved to have reached 35. You know, there was a time where I was like to what's this guy? What's his name? Upenwell. I was like, you know, Jesus died at age 33. Biko died just before he hit 31. So I'd outlived Jesus at that point, and I'd outlived Steve Biko. So now 35 is like, yeah, it's a big milestone age, you know, as a young black man to reach 35. You know, it's a privilege and an honor. And yeah, man, life goes on, I guess. You know, I'm still fresh. I'm still young. And yeah, I'm closer to 40 than I was to 30 a day ago. So that's also, you know, a big change. It's like, oh, damn it. In 4 years from now, I'm going to be staring 40 down in the face. But that's also a good thing. We want to grow old, I think. You know what I mean? My generation is unfortunate because I'm a Grootman too. A lot of them left us. You know what I mean? You guys, there are less of you now than they were when you guys started. If we look at your guys' generation, there's less of you that are still alive. You know what I mean? And one needs to thank God for each day that you get in life. And yeah, thank God for Amakrotman too. You know what I mean? That we still have them and that they're still there to guide us in so many ways. This week, actually, I was just thinking about Bugalav, actually. It's a very funny thing because there was a time I was somewhere in Paul, I think. I was on a getaway and I called Refilo Ramokas, and I was saying to him, hey, Grootman, my generation needs an intervention, a serious intervention. I don't know what you can do, but we need your generation's help in some way, shape or form. And then he spoke to Grootman Letu, Pastor Mabalan. And I guess they revived the idea of bringing back his home cell, And personally, for me, I just never had the time to dedicate to a home cell group with the other things that I'm doing. But I felt that a lot of people within my generation needed it. And it's been very encouraging to hear that a lot of people have gone there, and they found some sort of spiritual guidance. I know before Keenan passed away, he started going to that home cell. I talked to El Tito at least monthly or something. He's part of that home cell. I think Casper is also part of that home cell that Pastor Mabalani is doing. A lot of guys, our Abo Younger Chief and a whole lot of other guys. So, I hope that they can continue with that and stay strong with that. And we can at least use this as an example or a prototype of some sort of mentorship that Amakrotman are able to give. You're doing it in your own way. I mean, this is not a home cell because it's not on a Wednesday. Wednesdays or Thursdays, I don't know. Home cells are never on a Monday. That's what I know. But we've got our audience as well, and there's your generation, my generation. There's also the younger generations that are watching this and looking up to us. There's also older generations that are also coming onto this platform, and we're having discussions that are really moving the conversation forward. I think we're building a lot. I don't know if you rewatched that episode with Sis Mandisa. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did. Before I go to that episode, I just want to say that I'm proud of you.
Okay.
Yeah, from when I first met you when you were a teen.
Yeah.
At YFM.
Yeah.
When you first came through to my radio show.
Yeah.
And the things that you went on to do.
Thank you.
Getting into the industry and everything you have achieved and all the obstacles that you've had to overcome in the industry.
Yeah.
And just seeing you grow has always been amazing. I've always seen an incredible side of you that not many have seen over the years. And from when we started recording on the Hustlers Corner 3 to almost 4 years ago,
yeah,
I could already see what a lot of people are starting to see now. But it's just at the time, people never understood you. People used to go by clips out there on socials. And we're very privileged to have known you in person, to have seen you grow, and to have an hour's conversation with you and just understand the type of mind that you have. I've always just, wanted the whole world to understand your brilliance. And I think it's only a few people that realize your brilliance, those that were around you in the industry that really know you. The likes of MacG. I think you used to do episodes on MacG, but I think a lot of people were sleeping on you.
Yeah.
And I think when also we do episodes and you'd also do episodes with Pen, some people started sort of recognizing.
Yeah.
Because some people, they go with platforms like Twitter and what is said about you out there. But they were not giving themselves some time to listen to you. And it's the same with politics. When people support a certain political party or certain ideology or certain religion or certain soccer team, they tend to just ignore everything else that doesn't go according to their own ideologies or people who don't support what they support. But once you become a human and you mature, you get to listen to people for what they have to deliver on the table, even if you don't have to agree with them. You get to admire their brilliance. So I've always just been in awe of my dreadlocks were still small. The podcast was still new. We used to sit outside in Rosebank at Clico. Yeah. And I used to just have all these long conversations with you. And I just used to be like, Jesus, this guy's got such an amazing mind. And just to think how quickly time has gone by. Yeah. And now it's like 2025 and you're 35 years old. And you're alive, man. Yeah. Very proud of you. And I did say on that other episode, I wasn't happy visiting you at Sun City, seeing you across those bars and across that window, not being able to, just be with you. Was not nice. But cooler, by daughter. Those are some of the things that charting your path and that are building you stronger, So I hope you've learned from your mistakes, become a better man as you grow. A lot of people look up to you. Let me put it that way, that now you're a great man. You've got a huge gang of young people that you inspire. Yeah. You are the modern day Pastor Mabalani. You're the modern day Zola 7. You're the modern day DJ Smooth. You are the guys that are now running with this thing, So happy birthday, my brother. I love you very much.
No, thank you.
I'd like to see you live on for many more years to come. And I'm glad when my children are older one day, they're going to be watching these videos, even whenever I'm no longer around. And they'll have time to just sit and just listen to our convos. And I think they'll know whether they've got a bigger brother or an uncle in NOTA.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, man. And thank you for, sticking by my side through it all, through the mo fire. Yeah, man, as much as people get to misunderstand me, I'm also very patient, just in general, because I've never been understood since I was a young child. But even though I might have been different, my mother worked very hard on instilling a strong self-esteem in us, and I guess with that, whether it be going to school and you find that there's bullies or whatever the case may be, you know what I mean? I was really well prepared for each and every single environment. I mean, even when we're still living in Soweto, to people who might not believe, because when you see me on my face, like I'm super, I'm super light skinned.
That's why
You know what I mean? I'm super light skinned. And there's a picture I posted on my Instagram. If you look at my dad's legs, now he's even lighter than me. But if you look at his face, he's darker than me. So I'm super, super light skinned. And Elokshini, when we were growing up as kids, to be light skinned, sometimes you'd be bullied and you'd be fought with, you know what I mean? People would try scratch you on your face or whatever the case may be. And my mother was always very protective of us, but at the same time, she knew that she wouldn't always be there. So she made sure that, don't let anyone bully you. You need to fight for yourself. You need to stand up for yourself. So with that level of self-esteem backing me, even with the whole entire world, whether I'm trending and people are saying negative things, you know what I mean? It never affected who I am and who I show up as. You know what I mean? That is part one. That is just the part from home. And then also, there's the parents that, are chosen for you, your God-given parents. And then there's the parents that you choose as you grow up. You know what I mean? Having met you at such a young age as well, you became another parent that I could choose and be like, damn, here's someone I can look up to. Here's someone who motivates me and inspires me. for you, I guess the parent that you chose would be Jay-Z. And you haven't told me that. It's just that, every morning on the DJ Smooth breakfast show when it was still on Y, we'd be listening to Jay-Z. You know what I mean? We'd be reading what Jay-Z's reading because Smooth would tell us, yo, do you know where Jay-Z came up with this line? He was reading this book about such and such, about this philosophy. And then for us who are interested, for us who get nuggets of information and want to do a deep dive, we started deep diving, that interest. I had it from a young age, Donald Trump was my dad's hero, because my dad is in the construction space. But only of these big billionaires, when their net worths and the Forbes and the Fortune magazines and all of those things were being, my dad was interested in that stuff and I started following them. But when I'd go to my cousins who still lived Elokshin at the time and I went there, they weren't really as interested in any of those things because the media that they were exposed to, a lot of it didn't really cover that. So I felt like you bridged the gap, simple things, from understanding that a hustler is also an entrepreneur, a hustler is a businessman. You know what I mean? Umuntu oziphandelayo is someone that's the owner of a startup, those sorts of things. And you fed that into us, a lot of what I am today is also modeled on like watching other parents that we got to choose, Amakrutman Etu, like Pastor Mabalane, his journey from being a Kwaito star, leading the youth in that movement, to him now owning his calling, is also something that has been admirable to watch, because the tendency is that you want to distance yourself from anything that is secularized or secular, or, and if you are a part of secular music, you want to distance yourself when you go into gospel. But I feel like he's found the perfect balance of understanding the generation that he raised with his music and understanding his responsibility to them now that he's also had revelations that have come into his life that have shown him his greater purpose as well, and fully fleshed that out for him. And, I feel like it's very important for people like me and myself to speak highly of the people that we look up to, especially those ones that are maybe just a generation ahead of us. You know what I mean? We're almost close enough to be contemporaries, but things move so fast right now that the generation gap is getting smaller and smaller. I'm sure Abo Nesisi or Aries or whoever the case may be, they are Amakrotman right now to another generation of people. And they now need to lead that generation in the next chapter that they enter into. You know what I mean? They now need to move like a Mahrutman. And so that's what I'm looking forward to seeing as well. The results of my generation being a Khrotman going to pay their dividends in a couple of years, and we'll be able to see what position the ones who looked up to us and came directly after us are in. And we hope that it's a better position. For you, look at it like this. Right now, anyone who's in the township, let's just discuss to the music space. When you started, you needed to leave the township, go into the suburbs, speak to the big companies, partner with them or whatever, do deals with them. We're now in the internet age and things are simpler. People need distribution. The younger generation today, they're not coming to you and saying, hey, Smuda, net demo. They're like, Smuda, check out my content. Please give me a repost. Give me a share. You know what I mean? Expose your audience to what I'm making. You know what I mean? I'm self-sufficient. I just need more eyeballs. And the more eyeballs I can get, the higher I can elevate. And you guys need to be proud of yourselves for that. You know what I mean? You need to be proud of yourselves for the fact that, my generation sees themselves as business people, as entrepreneurs, you know what I mean, in general. And even if they don't, they feel like they need to get there, you know, eventually. The generation that comes after us, you know, they're also finding their independence because they're the first generation that didn't even look to us as Grotmans to put them on. They said, we're going to put ourselves on. You know what I mean? So we're progressing. And the generation that comes after them, I hope they will be fully able to take advantage of, you know, the business space and introduce a new type of aspiration for young Black people, especially in South Africa. I mean, aspirational value back in the day was very simple to define. It's anything that Black people were excluded from previously is now aspirational. But we've got new aspirations now, you know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of what we've aspired to do has come from a culture that is against our values as Africans. You know, there's no Ubuntu in The Bold and the Beautiful. There's no Ubuntu in Days of Our Lives. There's no Ubuntu in, you know, Home and Away or any of the shows that we used to watch internationally. You look at generations and what that was able to do for people's imaginations. I know in primary school, I was doing advertising campaigns. You know what I mean? I remember I did an ad for another soda drink brand when they introduced the vanilla flavor. And this was in primary school, you know. But I was inspired because I had a direct reference of like, oh, New Horizons is doing this. So this is how an ad campaign is done, you know. And, you know, there's Mukwebo Milling as well. When I still used to watch Mobango. I remember Mobango, the first episode, the casket didn't want to go down. Do you remember that? Playing into the stereotype by a target event. But, you know, I mean, they were just playing into the stereotype. But there we got to see Black business people running a business. There's been so many of these shows, you know, that especially the SABC, and shout out to them, that have fed into us. But because we are now playing in a global market, there's global trends and everything else, I feel like the aspirational value that was being shown in TV shows had been bastardized a little bit, because you'd have the aspirational value, but then there'd also be the other lifestyles that people started to live out that were maybe destructive. And at first we were watching it because we're looking at it from afar and thinking, oh my goodness, oh no, this could never be me. But right now, Brooke Logan wouldn't shock you, because there's a Brooke Logan that you know from Inalate, Soweto. There's a Brooke Logan that you know from Four Ways or a Sunning Hill. You understand what I'm saying? And because that was exciting to watch and the people started seeing that a lot, it got normalized. And we're seeing that playing itself out. You know, there's a reason why I was asking you if you rewatched that episode with Sis Mandisa. Because I was watching it and I was watching the live chat and I was watching the comments, and what I can say is that she's a very polarizing person. You know what I mean? So there's people that absolutely love her, agree with everything she says, and then there's other people who are like, hey, I never want to hear from her again. And it's a good thing, because, you know, I felt like what we were able to do, me and her and yourself as well, during that episode, we're able to show that you can have disagreements with someone's point of view and then come into a position where you guys now need to confront your conflicting ideologies, you know. And in that episode, for me, I just wanted to hear her out. That's what I was saying. I wanted to hear her out, have her express herself, you know, have her say everything, unload, you know, and be a punching bag. Because sometimes you just need to be a punching bag. And with men, if it's us two guys, we don't have those sorts of discussions like that, because, you know, we just are socialized differently. But now when you're observing such a discussion, you know, people get confused. They think, oh no, she is talking down to him because he's a man and she hates men, or whatever the case may be. Or he must fire back because he can't allow himself to be disrespected. He's a man. For me, I didn't feel disrespected in any way, shape, or form, because anything that she was saying was not about me personally. And it wasn't about me taking it personally, you know. And had I took it personally, she wouldn't be free to express herself the way that she wants to. You know what I mean? Whether you disagree with it or not, you need to respect that point of view. And we don't have enough platforms where we allow such discussions to take place, you know. And when I looked at the comments, there were a lot of people that said, you know what, I'm actually grateful that I stayed to watch. In the first couple of minutes, I didn't want to watch, but I watched it until the end. And by the time we get to the end, you know, the conversation becomes more cordial. What people don't understand is that you guys are responding to a trigger that I had. Mina, I triggered her because my first question was to say, why are you angry? And we know that the notion or the stereotype of the angry black woman is out there everywhere. You know what I mean? Anytime a black woman wants to express herself, they say, oh, you're a typical angry black woman. You're another angry black woman. So I wanted to get into where does that anger stem from? You know what I mean? And sometimes someone doesn't know what makes them angry or doesn't know what makes them triggered, you know, to have an emotional reaction. So you need to allow themselves to speak, to express something, and then to be like, I'm still not done expressing myself, actually. This is actually something I've never thought about. Let me also express this. And then to be like, you know what, I'm still not done. Let me also express this. And she expressed herself until she felt she was done. And then we could have the discussion, and then we could take down the moment, and then we could get through the cordiality, and then she could speak other things into me, you know, that she sees. And that was very great. You know, she made me some tea, some special hibiscus tea as well after we recorded. So it was pretty good. And I think her nephew is going to come and join us and see an episode as well. So for those of you that feel like she doesn't want any masculine energy around her, you know what I mean? She's already saying her nephew must come be with us. The guys, you know what I mean? She also said she felt safe around us and she was surrounded by men only, you know, at the same time. So I don't want people to misjudge or mischaracterize that episode. I feel like let us have these discussions. Let us allow people to express themselves, and she did so very well. So I'm very grateful. I'd like to give her a big shout out, and also shout out to all the people that are in the comments engaging. I think we're sitting at almost 2,000 or 3,000 comments by now. So these episodes are impactful. I mean, from the 17th of February episode, the comments on each and every single Monday have been, you know, at least 1,000 plus. So that's a lot of engagement. You know what I mean? That's not normal. I mean, it's usually 100 or 200 or less than 500 usually. So we're seeing a big growth in the engagement of the audience. And then beyond that, I also watched your catch up with what is his title now?
Who? Bishop Joshua Maponga.
Bishop Joshua Maponga.
Oh, the incredible Bishop Joshua Maponga, the Pan-Africanist. Incredible Grootman, very knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. He's very talented in being able to articulate his thoughts. Mm. He's very well learned. He reads. Yeah. He writes from time to time. I just bought his latest book last month. Guys, go check it out. He's got a movement called Farmers of Thought. He writes articles there. He writes books. He's got a lot of knowledge. Basically, he's got farms of thought and is very controversial. He provokes people's emotions when he speaks. He's very insightful, very educational. Yeah. And I like people like that. He touched on Zim, what's going on in Zim. He brought us into the politics of Zimbabwe. Yeah. And also shout out to him because, you know, there's not many people that speak about the Kukarahundi
and you know what I mean, and what happened before that. So also he was talking about the history that led to the Kukurahundi. So I found that very informative for me.
Yeah, and for me, I kind of feel, when our parents were growing up, they used to tell us about Gogo Babo, Nabomkhulu. They used to sit around the fire. They used to go, Kwasuka Sugela, Xosi, Kwakukhona, Ugogo, kukhona ingane. Those stories, that was part of storytelling that has always been big in the continent, the storytelling culture. It's beautiful that now we're in the digital age, and a lot of us are able to bring in those elders and learn from them. And even when the elders are not around, it's beautiful that we are able to create this type of content. Because not all the time that you have to create controversial content or content that is degrading or negative for you to get clout, for you to get engagements and views. I like platforms like these. Darren does great content. Penuel does awesome content. Season Wolf does great content. There's a lot of others, right? Even in the white community, you've got about Biz News networks that are doing great content. You've got about Scheme GP. So we're all storytelling online in the modern day era or age. So when you've got a person like Bishop Joshua Maponga, you are in for it. You're in for a beautiful lesson for about an hour. So that's why, every time when he lands in the country, he hits me up, Ndwana, I'm around. Are you available? Let's shoot. I've got some things to say. And he knows that this platform is about educating. So I think it was a beautiful episode. I also had a lot of fun. But I also have been listening to a lot of comments around sound, people complaining about our sound, people wanting us to improve the platform. And I've also, treated the Hustlers Corner as a side project because I do a lot of things. But I've dedicated myself this year in saying, let's better the content. Let's bring the right minds around to make this content become so well that when people like him share content, it lives on forever and it's proper and audible. So we do hear you guys.
Oh, yes. There was a part where your voice was muted and then I didn't hear the question. And then there was a part where his voice was muted and I didn't hear the answer. But those were small technical glitches. But yeah, no, I see that. It's a ragtag type of outfit putting this content together as well, like currently, you know what I mean? And people have got in expectations of very high standards, so I understand that.
Yeah, man. As much as, you are Grootmans to some people, we are your Grootmans. We've got our own Grootmans, and that's how it's supposed to be. Let's learn from one another and let's do better.
Yeah.
I was checking out one of my youngsters, Utachi, who's doing really well on Piano Pulse with MacG.
Yeah, he says he wants to come here.
He must come back.
He says he wants to come back to come to the podcast. We need a third mic for him.
Yeah, we must congratulate him. I'm proud of him. Even when he got the gig with MacG, hit me up. He's like, Grootman, I just wanted to thank you because of the episode that I did with you.
Yeah.
MacG hit me up and he said he saw me on your podcast and he'd like for us to speak. And now I just want to tell you, I just signed a contract with him. I'm on MacG Podcast and Chill. That was late last year. So I'm very proud to see him grow. I'm very proud to see him stand his ground. But he's rough around the edges. He's still young. He'll also get better in his broadcasting, but he's an amazing talent. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing more young people like that who express themselves. He's
an amazing talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. He needs to do the work now. It's time for the work because he's got a spotlight on him. And, I see a lot of young people, they catch on fire. And in the midst of the flame, it's very difficult to find your direction and find your bearings, So for someone like him, he comes from a journalist background. I was actually speaking to his lecturer. Is it from TUT? Yeah, from TUT. He's lecturer in journalism.
Yeah.
From TUT. I'm not going to say his name, but he's a buff guy with tattoos. So, they're teaching a lot of kids journalism. And those ones that are in that space right now is their moment. You know what I mean? The online space is growing. And we need a lot more writers. We need a lot more storytellers. What they're doing right now for the music genre is similar to what Slicker was doing for hip hop with ventilation.co.za. Because, yes, there was Hype Magazine and all those other hip hop sort of platforms, but they weren't enough. And for the market to grow, we're growing SA hip hop. We need a media platform that's going to cover us, that's going to tell the story, that's going to paint the narrative for us. So that's the role that Ventilation was playing. So right now with Amapiano blowing up globally and everything else, they're occupying the space of being the media platform for Amapiano. And they're standing on the shoulders of a giant on, Podcast and Chill, which has got 1.5 million subscribers, so the platform itself is given a boost by that. Now, when you're on such a big platform, the biggest thing is credibility. Everyone that watches an episode needs to feel like these guys have done the work,
While you're on that thought, let me mention that anything that you do in life is all about consistency, guys. You can start and you take off. And if you don't put your foot on the pedal, you lose the momentum. And I would like to believe one of the first South African successful Amapiano culture podcast, or let me say platform, that was covering the culture at the time was Rhea and Black Steph. And for me, it was the first time seeing somebody do a 5-hour podcast, and that was you on Rhea and Black Steph. And I think at the time they were onto something incredible.
They were. They interviewed Buhle, they interviewed Mr. Jesse.
Indona Z. They were amazing in the space. But I want to say also, I blame both of the young people. It's not all gone. They can still, start again and do their thing. But if they hadn't stopped then, imagine how far they would be today.
You know what I mean?
Rhea had his mistakes, and I'm glad that he had to go through what he had to go through, just like any other young person who has to learn the hard way. He's probably going to come out a better person, even getting lawsuits from Bonang, etc. But even Stefan also, I blame him for not continuing with the platform. As much as it was both of theirs, if any one of them maybe decided to not continue, one of them should have continued. And they could have worked with other people. Imagine how far they would be today. Although I know they're still both hustling and doing great in whatever they're doing. But I just believe, as far as documenting the piano culture and being a place to go to for in terms of podcasting, I think they were on a really beautiful trajectory. So for me, I just want us to, all you young people out there, to learn from such situations. To be like, sometimes when you've got something great going and for some reason you get distracted for whatever reason and you don't put your foot on the pedal, these platforms online, they work, or they grow as much as you put in the work.
Yeah, and it can work against you. I think it's also like, for me, I don't feel like I ever instantly had to learn how to deal with being well known. A lot of young people, when they get into fame very quickly, without the proper mentorship and guidance, and sometimes, you won't get direct mentorship, but just a small thing like being around Smuda, seeing him engage with people, just from the time I was a kid, his demeanor, okay, in public, okay, then you leave whatever space, now you're in private, your conduct, you know what I mean? Seeing family, okay, he's still got a connection with his family, he's still grounded, you know what I mean? I was with you and your cousins the other day at your mom's house as well, you know what I mean? And it's not an occasion when you're around. It's like, oh yeah, extra hands are here, you know what I mean? And with the internet giving people fame that don't get to have that development or that coaching or that grooming properly, it's very easy for them to lose their way and not know what is the main thing. And the main thing needs to stay the main thing, So as much as I feel like all is not lost, I was speaking to Steph actually just last week. He's just dropped some projects. He's dropped some singles as well under House of Isama. He's working on music as well. He's also doing some campaigns for some artists. He did a collaboration with DJ Lag, who's, an international superstar as well. So that's pretty dope. So he's continuing with whatever he's doing. But as for the music space as a whole, and this is a conversation I was having with both Tahi and Sfiso as well 2 weeks ago. Right now, we need to get over the, I guess, we need to stop trying to, make our country a monolith. Amapiano is not the only genre, and although I'm glad, that they've got a show for it and everything else, I do feel like we need to start covering South African music as a whole. Right now, the biggest rivalry in South African music is between two genres, Maskandi and Likombo. And when you look at the two genres, or let's just say the music that's coming out of KZN, right, is sustaining within that region. It's a very regional sound, right? And because of how popular it is within that region and the growth of the internet, you know what I mean? It's coming across the rest of the country, Limpopo as well, they've got a whole lot of new stars. And before the internet age, those stars were really regional stars, and they were very popular. Even at the beginning of YouTube, Buju Moju was like getting crazy numbers on YouTube. He was the first guy that I saw going over 1 million views on YouTube. And Yomo Chavas and them. They're now establishing their own thing within Limpopo as well. And those are the two genres in terms of the audiences and the listenership. You know that Amazulu like to sing Amapedi.
But you do know that Limpopo movement has always been big.
Yeah, I know.
It's just been passed on from generation to
same with
generation.
KZN.
And people don't know, same with KZN.
It always had their own thing going.
All the way from your Black Mambazos, your Soul Brothers, it comes from all way back.
Where's Northwest?
And even when you look at the North, actually people don't even know one of the wealthiest, not counting the international stars about Black Coffee, wealthiest South African musicians. I want that Thomas Chauke, the most humblest of guys.
Yes.
When you meet them, they make you feel like you the star.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
humble. But those are the most successful, highly accomplished musicians.
Over 50 albums under their belts.
Yeah. The late great
Solimolo.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Solimolo. Eshel Tamalak, I need to give him his flowers. He's also passed Philip Tabane.
Oh, yes.
Yes. With that Kiba music sound. So you're correct.
Well, I guess he's Limpopo Mamelodi as well, I guess. Because he went to Mamelodi. He was part of the Malombo movement, I guess.
And I totally agree, because just like how you've grouped Mujava, and some of the guys are actually coming from Pretoria, not really Limpopo.
Yeah.
But you understand that's a northern sound.
Exactly.
But then you've got the KZN sound as well that can actually just sustain themselves.
Both of them,
you know what I mean,
are sustaining themselves.
And they're authentic.
You understand what I'm saying?
And they're not trying to sound American. They're not trying to...
Nothing.
And they've got like loyal supporters.
And they're moving right now. And what you're seeing is that it's a little bit of an East Coast, West Coast type thing. It's competition. It's not beef. It's not like the artists are fighting or taking each other's markets. But the fans of the genres are fighting amongst themselves to say, we celebrate our culture better than you. And that little rivalry, I think it's only healthy for South African music. In Limpopo, the production has gotten a lot better.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to correct myself. It's Dr. Selokhalane.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Don't just say that this Selok is Dr.
Which one is that one? Is it the actor? Okay.
Maruapula.
Oh, yeah.
Not the Maruapula that was done by the great Mama Letambulu.
Yeah.
But Selokhalane is one of our greats. Dr. Selokhalane is one of our greats. There's a lot of incredible musicians that the new generation don't know of. Abo Bayete, Abo Stimela, those groups that have done timeless music. Abo Papa Penny, the new generation now know him as
Kanyele is my mom's favorite musician. I think they were both born in 1957. Mm.
My mom
Steve Jobs
was born 1958.
58. Okay, yeah. Intanga's about Steve Jobs.
Yeah, my mom still bangs that music.
Yeah,
I was visiting her last week, and she was just banging all of her old stuff. And it's just nice to just listen to all of this music. Sometimes she tells me about how they met with my father, where these songs remind her. And then you're like, geez, then you calculate, that's like 40 years ago, that's like 50 years ago. And then you're like, wow, this music is still relevant even today. There is also Ntata Rex Rabanye. There's a song that if you can play right now in any gig in South Africa, whether it's a wedding, whether it's at a club, when people are drunk, Unketsang, the whole house goes crazy. And you know how old that song is? That song, my man, is over 40 years old. It was dropped 1982. So as creatives, we should strive to make art like that.
Yeah, with the organs. So, with all these genres that are coming up right now, and all the genres that we had previously, and all the music that we're making, South African music is actually looking really healthy. And I feel like the forgotten genres currently in this era, are on a resurgence. Gospel is doing very well.
It'll forever do well. It's the most selling genre in South Africa.
I also saw Ndozo Mkhize wrote a song for a breakout star from KZN, Naledi Apiwe.
Nice.
You know what I mean? A brilliant song.
I just also lost Yolanda, man. So rest in peace.
Oh, yes. You know what I mean? In fact, I think they're doing a memorial service for while we're recording this in Cosmo City. Sad about her sudden loss. Again, she's another one that's not an Amapiano star. You know what I mean? She's more of an Afro-pop artist, but she was able to do a lot of collaborations with a lot of people outside her genre. And she leaves the world with, an excellent body work, which she will be remembered by.
I can never talk about the North and forget the great Ntate Peter Tinet.
Yes.
And Ntate Paul Ndlovu.
Yes, obviously.
Oh, my brother. Memories of us being kids, man, watching those music videos. For the first time I saw a holocaupt, I was like, wow, that artist is like in a holocaupt.
Yeah.
That's what we used to call it as kids. A helicopter. Holocaupt. Yo, I'm an holocaupt.
That's what I felt when I picked up my sister from Zanin. She was flying to Senegal at some point in time, and she needed to come back to Joburg to go to OR Tambo. So she wanted to take a taxi. But luckily, I was using a private plane. And I felt like Peter Tenet. I picked up my sister in Zanin and flew back with her to Jersey, and it's just sad because, before I ever flew on a small plane, I always had the, not Peter Tenet, sorry, Peter Ndlovu. Paul Ndlovu.
Paul Ndlovu.
He's Pete.
Remember the tribute
Peter
song?
To pay Paul.
Paul Ndlovu.
I must have been very young. That's 90s.
You don't remember? Yeah.
No, that's 90s or what is it? Yeah, early 90s. Né?
Okay, do you
So
remember?
he passed away in a plane crash.
Yeah,
remember?
plane crash.
So that's why with that, itafamba moye anything, and then finally flying on a small plane and thinking to myself, hey, I don't want to end up like Paul Ndlovu. I mean, Peter Tenet.
But do you remember?
He was sampled.
South Africa.
Yeah, I still remember that song. Yes.
Beautiful land. Let's show the whole world we can bring peace to our land.
Yeah, it reminds me of Chris Honey. It's after he passed away, that song used to play a lot on TV.
And at the time, I think there was just that move and that push for us to come together because there was a threat of that civil war in the country. Because people really loved Ntate Chris Honey.
Exactly. So, music has always been part of our lives. And it's just so unfortunate that because of isolation, technologically, we couldn't allow everyone to have the same access to the same tools. But with the digital era, everyone got Pro Tools, everyone got Fruity Loops. You didn't need an SSL. You don't need, a full studio, So our music has gotten better with the times. Trap came into the space with hip hop, and South African hip hop from a production standpoint, got equivalent to or even better than what we are hearing from America. And that's changed the paradigm for people who are making music. Because if I'm listening to Tweezy and he sounds just as good as Metro Booming, and Metro Booming is at the top of the Billboard chart at that point in time, then I'm starting to feel like I can compete globally. So the generation of artists that come up today are not just looking for South Africa as a market, they're looking for the globe as a market. And the general trends, if you look at Spotify, the majority of artists have over 50% of their revenue coming from countries outside of their native homeland, and that's across the board. So the world is literally your oyster. You should be looking at growing into global markets. And I feel like all the other genres can look at what piano has been able to get done successfully and also feel like they also have a chance to do the same thing. It's about pushing the content. You know what I mean? The kids that are dancing to the videos, they're the ones who spread it across the globe. And we don't know how long TikTok will still be global. We're some of the top 20 music markets in the world. We're headed for top 10, and we can only get there if we've got more than one genre to sell. So I feel like we need a lot more platforms. A lot of the music journalists, they're not taking advantage of the internet age. They're not creating content on YouTube. You know what I mean? A lot of the people that are within the music space, the festival owners, they're also not taking advantage of the internet. Some of the artists that will be bringing in new audiences to your festivals that you're busy planning are still on TikTok right now. They haven't been discovered. And those are the platforms that you should be using to discover and unearth new talent across the board. You know what I mean? We can't just look at one genre and think, oh, that's the genre that's working, and then put all our efforts in there. Because our music is diverse and also our people are very talented. So we need to broaden this thing. I think when it comes to music in this country, music and dance, we've hit a gold mine. You know what I mean? And we've tested the global markets, and we've seen that our product is good enough to compete with the best in the rest of the world. So we really need to push that further, So it brings me to the next point that I was going to make about Piano Pulse. I remember when I was still discussing with Reason. I gave him a call one day after he announced that he's changing his name to Sizwe Alakine. I was like, Ish, why are you changing your name to Sizwe Alakine? Because you built so much brand equity with Reason, and now, you're giving it up, and, you'll still be a hip-hop guy. You'll need to rebuild your brand after that. And, I don't want to get into the details of what we saw happen on Piano Pulse, because, I wasn't actually too happy with that. But what it showed is that, if people were saying Reason is irrelevant, it showed that he's still relevant. You know what I mean? Or relevant, enough for people to recognize who he is. And that identity didn't need to die for him to now transition into doing piano. There was a point in time where rappers were jumping onto every genre, hopping into everything seamlessly and carrying their brand with it and not having to come through with a pseudonym. But I think that he was put under pressure because piano, as it was emerging, was still very gate-kept, There were the few people that you needed to be associated with to get successful or to get ahead. But things have changed.
I don't believe in the concept of gatekeeping. When you've got studios and you can be able to upload music from your own corner, or your own apartment, anywhere in the world, I don't think you need anyone.
Yeah.
It's like somebody saying podcasts are gatekept. How? Because you can record from your own room and post it online.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are ways in which you can gatekeep it. I mean, like
How?
a lot of podcasts benefits from like interviews.
In our era, it was easy to gatekeep stuff.
Yeah, it's more difficult now.
You need radio airplay. You need to speak to certain people. You need to be played. Nowadays, you don't really. Well, radio still helps, but still, come on. Like, things are independent now.
Right now, the gatekeeping...
But they call it decentralization.
Yeah, decentralized. What happens with the gatekeeping now is that they slow down your progress.
How though?
Let me put it to you like this. if you are starting a podcast and you're doing it by yourself, you're on camera, you need to build up your brand for people to actually watch you and take you seriously, right? But if you've got guests that are coming in each and every single week and they've already built up their profile, you are getting an audience, you are getting their credibility, and the type of guest that you're able to get determines how gatekept the space may be. So in that aspect, it's still like that. With the music, let's put it like this. If you are associated with a primary artist that has got a huge monthly listenership, you know what I mean? Like I do a song with, let's say, Calvin Momo. It's going to shoot out the lights a lot more than if I do the song with someone who's less known or has got less streaming numbers.
But how did he become Calvin Momo?
So, yes, that's true. What we need to understand is that the opportunities are not equal. We cannot say that he became Calvin Momo because he put in more effort than everybody else. It was his opportunity. He was fortunate. And when we're dealing with things where sometimes you can get a lucky break, that lucky break helps you get into other opportunities that you then need to grow into. And then whether you grow into it or not determines how sustainable that is. Yes, you can say yes. You'll still need to prove yourself to get staying power. But to get that initial opportunity, you don't really need to prove yourself that much.
You need to. Taki.
Yeah.
For me to be able to feature Taki on my platform, he was already popping on his own, doing videos from his own phone.
Mm-hmm.
He did not need or have to rely on any guests. He did not have any expensive microphones or cameras.
But he
kept on doing consistent content on his own. I put him onto my podcast.
Yeah.
MacG saw him on my podcast. He's on MacG now. And he's doing incredible work. He's blowing up, right? And that's what happens sometimes with this decentralization where we shouldn't make kids feel like MacG's gatekeeping podcast, Pori's gatekeeping piano. Nobody can gatekeep you nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. They can't. But the way I'm putting this gatekeeping, the thing is that we cannot give kids a false impression to think that they've got a fair chance, just like everybody else. Utari needed to be selected by Ihrotman, who's got a vision and wants to feed into young people, and then put him on his platform. You know what I mean? And he was buzzing on TikTok, but he wasn't really that big. And you saw him early.
But even if it wasn't me, it was going to be somebody else sooner or later. Same as Penuel. Penuel was already putting in the work.
He was putting in the work.
We worked together. He contributed to me. I contributed to him.
No, you gave him credibility. You put him on a platform where it says, now that you need to understand, you don't experience it, but we experience it. I experience it. People look at me differently because I'm associated with you than when I'm just by myself. That's how big your brand is. That's how, trust me, it's a different thing. Abu Mama, take me seriously because I'm associated with you. And for them, they say, if Usbuda co-signs this young man, maybe there's some potential. Maybe he's rough around the edges, but maybe there's some potential. So what I'm saying is that it's not to say that people can't gatekeep you from starting. They can't stop you from starting. And as long as you start and you're consistent, you can get far. And no one can stop you from getting to your ultimate destination, right? It shouldn't matter how much time it takes you to get to your ultimate destination if getting to the destination is the goal. You know what I mean? If you want to get to Durban safely, if you drive slowly and it takes you 11 hours, it makes no difference. The speed at which you were going, you know what I mean? Because you're driving slowly, you're still getting to the destination. Someone is driving to Durban trying to make it in 3 hours, doesn't make it to Durban. You know, it's much more risky. Someone makes it to Durban, but because they didn't learn anything along their way, you know, they lose their way. And someone makes it to prominence without going through the hard times. And because they didn't learn anything going through the hard times, it became too easy. And when it started becoming too easy, they didn't look at how they're going to grow into this space and they weren't consistent, then they're going to lose their way. So I want to encourage everyone out there to start, you know what I mean, to get going and to not feel as if anyone can stop you from getting what you're going. But also at the same time, I need to be honest about a lot of the people that are prominent within our space. There is a little bit of, you know, clicks, or there is a little bit of selecting people that you feel like you might vibe with. And it's not just about unearthing the raw talent. The problem with that thing is that raw talent will be found or by an audience. And you feeling like, oh, this raw talent is going to outshine me on my platform or anything else. What's going to happen is that If you close them out, they're going to outshine you on another platform and you won't be able to participate in that. You know what I mean? And we need to be focused on creating a healthy ecosystem, because the stories that we're telling are very rich. And our style of storytelling is also very unique in South Africa, the way we tell stories. And our cultural and language diversity also makes us tell stories in many different ways. And as we're growing, whatever spaces that we're growing in the culture industry, you know what I mean? We're making content, we're making music, we're making products. And we want to ensure that this is fertile land for us to grow and scale up. If you look at mining, right, as an example, mining is one of those industries that, you know, is the center of our economy, you know, and all the other industries are downstream from mining. If you look at how the South African economy is composed. Now look at how many participants are in the mining industry. Very few. That's heavily gate-kept, you know. And also, of those participants, a lot of them are not doing anything that takes any more than having capital. And the ones that have got access to the capital are not extending that access to capital to other smaller players to introduce more players. And that creates, you know, a cartel of companies. And we shouldn't create that in the creative space, because it's going to stunt our growth. It's going to stunt our development. The more and more people that are able to come into this space, the more and more ideas are able to flourish within this space. The more exchange of ideas, the more innovation, the more we're able to grow, you know. So the space should be about creating generational wealth and helping people escape from generational debt. And you cannot do that if you want to close people out in any way, shape or form. So I just hope that a lot more people are going to be encouraged to open up these spaces and I guess not be so selfish with their platforms or their numbers. You know what I mean? Don't be so selfish with your platforms and your numbers. Speak to people that you disagree with. Speak to people that you're on the opposite end of the ideological spectrum with, you know. Exchange ideas. And you never know what that could inspire. You know, there are certain people that just watch something and there's a 10-second clip that can start a R1 billion business. You know what I mean? You can just catch an idea and it can just crystallize as easy as that. You know, and that's what people need to be doing. You were telling me about someone who's in the financial services sector that just had their business acquired for nearly R500 million rand. And I was telling you about that poppy drink that we had when we were still in New York.
Yeah, let me start with this one. This one, I was doing some activations for F&B. At the time. The product was called Easy Plan. Within F&B, there used to be this young man who was tasked to bring in, what do they call them? Unions into the F&B platform to bring those types of accounts and like churches, etc. And I was really good at it, working within F&B, doing it for F&B. And at some point, he decided to go at it on his own. And I remember I actually really wanted to partner with him. For some reason, at that time, I was also starting Mofire, and I thought I really wanted to be a part of this business because I could see the potential, like really sharp from a term, street smart, sharp, well educated, understands finance, incredible dude. He's always been my friend till today. So anyway, he went on to start that business. But I've always known whatever this guy does, he's going to succeed. You know those people where you know you want to work with him. And you know you want to partner with him. Well, we ended up not working together. He went on to build an incredible financial services business. But his businesses has just been recently acquired for R500 million rands. And they acquired a minority stake.
So, sorry, what does this business do?
Financial services.
Yeah, but in which...
I don't want to go into detail.
Okay.
Because those in the financial services sector, they might tell who it is. And I also don't want to mention his name as well. Nice. Abafuna mention him, abafuna fame. They just like their lives private. And they're doing really well. And his brother also is killing it in the marketing space, in the marketing world. Works with brands, works with agencies, works with all these different media companies. His older brother, that's his mentor. But him as well, he's always been my bro. But I'm so proud of him. His business just recently now, they've just closed the deal now, end of last year, end of 2024, in November. They just acquired a minority stake of his business for like R500 million. And that's so amazing and inspiring to see your peers. And he's actually even younger than me. He's like, he's almost 40 now, 39, I think. You know, for me, I'm just so inspired to see people build something from nothing and it become what it's becoming. And they've got some great offices. Like he's got this corner office. It's like it's a movie. When you go there, it's got like over 200 people that work for him. It's got over 20 lawyers on payroll that are there every day. And it's just such an amazing story where I kind of feel like, dude, you need to write a book. And he's like, no. Angizifuni zonke lezo zinto mfana ngwriting so umuntu amakamera angizingeni mina lezo. So I just want to big up all the young black people that are doing great things out there. I know we watched the episode of Sis Mandisa Mashego, and there were some people that kind of felt she was not correct in saying everything that black leaders touch collapses. It's not only all black business people that collapse businesses. There's a lot of black excellence out there, but a lot of those people also are not mentioned in the media spaces. Bahamba pants, and they just like quiet money, and they like contributing to their community, making a difference, and employing hundreds of people quietly and building billion-rand businesses. So he knows who he is. Maybe. And big up to everyone. Sis GG and everyone that's doing well. I'm really proud of all of you all. You guys inspire us.
Yeah, no. So I was talking about the poppy story because at least that's in the news.
Maybe sometimes I miss the joke. I don't understand. What do you mean?
No, I need to. Ujiji owns businesses. She's a businesswoman.
Oh,
she employs lots of people. But
okay. Hamba Pans. People don't know about the
business. They know about the music. Yeah.
And sometimes you have to move like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes let people know what they know. And other things, not everything's for the camera.
Not everything. Yeah. Not all your businesses need to be out there in the open.
And not everyone who succeeds has to broadcast their success.
Exactly.
There's other people that you can nyata from a distance and you don't know they're fully loaded.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. So, I mean, with what I saw from the Poppy PepsiCo deal, it's sort of like the 50 cent vitamin water deal.
I was with you in New York when you showed me that drink at the time. I think it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then you sent me an article about a few weeks ago, and you showed me that Pepsi has just acquired that business for what, like $2 billion?
Yeah,
something like that.
It's a ridiculous amount of money either way. But I mean, outside of that, it's basically a probiotic drink. It's got wine vinegar and other probiotics infused in a soda, you know. So they're getting a nice big exit, you know what I mean? They're part of one of the biggest food companies in the world, you know, which is also inspiring as well.
The brand is called Poppy, and it's just been acquired by PepsiCo for about $1.5 billion. Yeah, for soda brand Poppy. That's how much they acquired it for. Yeah, this is beautiful. It's a healthier soda brand. They basically do healthy, like they're just in that healthy market.
Yeah, they're for your gut health. So, you know, I was enjoying that drink while I was drinking it. And, you know, I think it's another story that should be inspiring us. You know what I mean? We also want to see these great acquisitions for some of these locally made brands. And we also want to see people supporting these brands, you know what I mean? Because they not only provide people with a product that they can use and that has that utility, but when it comes from black business people who've been excluded from participation in the broader economy for such a long time, there's so much inspiration that people are able to draw from that. And the representation does really matter, you know. Sometimes you need to see a lot of entrepreneurs in the space that look like you, you know, and you also need to understand how they got to where they are, you know. We also need to be ensuring that we're telling these stories. And unfortunately, because of how the rest of the mainstream entertainment is, you know, these are the only platforms that people are actually coming to get that sort of information. And it gives us a very big responsibility to ensure that we're always representing our people well. I mean, yes, I do understand the criticisms of some of the things that Sis Mandisa was saying, but I think that the context also matters. You know, as much as we understand that a black business, right, is striving and has grown in leaps and bounds, black communities are not reaping the full benefit of that because there's still a big gap, whether it be our income gap, you know, black South Africans, let's just look at South Africans. Black South Africans earn, from an income perspective, on average 6 times less on a household a median than white families. You know, Indian families earn 4 times more. You know what I mean? Colored families earn more than black families. So there's that income inequality. What that income inequality means is that black people that earn an income are most likely to be on survival mode, and white people that earn an income are more, I guess, disposed to having income which they can invest. You know what I mean? They can use to acquire assets that produce more wealth for them. Now, the problem with that is that our system we live in the most unequal society in the world. And when we're looking at trends right now, we're at a stage in the world globally where the heritable wealth is greater than, you know, wealth that is produced first generation. You know, a lot of the people that are rich right now have got that wealth from their parents, their grandparents, or their families. And this is a historic trend, you know, that existed throughout the history of humanity until maybe just after the 1930s, right? And after the 1930s, with the Great Depression, what started to happen is that there was a lot of massive consolidation. So a lot of the big companies started buying each other and creating monopolies. But also on the smaller scale, because of prohibition and other laws, you know, there was a lot of black market businesses, illegal businesses, or small unregulated businesses that started establishing themselves. And they started growing. And then when you went into the Second World War, you know, manufacturing globally exploded, and you started seeing more manufacturing jobs going to many different countries. And when the war ended, they turned that war machine into, you know, an auto manufacturing machine. So Japan started making a lot of cars, Germany started making a lot of car brands, you know, and the manufacturing sector started creating wealth for a middle strata on what created the middle class. And that was the case up until the 90s. And from the 90s onwards, as globalization started extending, you know, as China was being integrated into the rest of the world after the Tiananmen Square protests, and they started normalizing their relations with the West a lot more than they did after, I think, Nixon's first visit to China. Or was it Reagan? Okay, but between the two, you know, there was middle class wealth that was being created. After the 90s, financialization came into play. If you look at the JSE in South Africa, the top companies, a lot of the financial companies, it's not even the mining companies anymore. So there's a lot of financialization. Our industries are being destroyed. Our factories are being turned into churches. Our jobs are being turned into prayers for miracles. That's what happens when a factory turns into a church. Instead of going there to work. Seriously.
Yo, NOTA is dropping bars.
I'm serious.
Continue.
So, you know, you used to go to the factory Monday to Friday. You know, now you go to the church on Sunday. You know, same building. You know what I mean? It's the same building. And, you know, so now when we look at our countries and we're trying to ensure that people are able to earn a living and have productive lives, we don't have a manufacturing sector to fall back on, you know, and that is the biggest challenge that we're facing right now. The banks are closing their branches. I don't know how many banks have closed their main branches. We were talking about it on the previous episode. I mean, a lot of them are digitizing their services. There's another service called Bank Zero. I think they're one of the fastest growing banks. They've got zero fees. They're like Time Bank.
Are they South African?
Yeah. Bank Zero and Time Bank are both South African. Well, I mean,
I'm
Time Bank is South African with,
I know Time Bank,
with Singapore money, yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean Singapore money?
As in, a lot of the investors that came in, initially Time Bank was a Singaporean company, and then African Rainbow Capital bought into it, and then brought their operations to South Africa. But I mean, there's a lot of companies that go between South Africa and Singapore and vice versa. You know, there was even another one, Kalahari.net.
I remember Kalahari.net.
Yeah, they were part of a group that ended up taking over a big business in Singapore, and it's, you know, now one of the biggest businesses in that country. So we're losing on the front of creating job opportunities, you know, and we're getting more and more unequal as a country. And when you look at
Bank 0.co.za,
yeah,
zero fees,
mm-hmm.
and relational banking makes it perfect for individuals, families, and small businesses. I earn forex, no bank fees, no charges. Wow. Bank Zero is registered with the South African Reserve Bank in 2018. They're an exclusively digital mutual bank in South Africa, and they offer both individuals and businesses. Bank Zero joins other new banks in South Africa, such as Time Bank and Discovery Bank. Hey, I learn every time when I'm with you. Continue.
Yeah, so I mean, they are able to get these banking licenses. You know what I mean? They understand the systems.
But that's the thing, they've got like mutual licenses, but they never really wanted them to own commercial licenses, just like the VBS, just like Italy.
Yeah, that's fine. But right. Can you see how they're making use of those mutual licenses? They're building themselves. You know, they started in 2018, so they're 7 years into it now, and they're growing. And the number of customers they have means that they are more likely to be able to qualify for commercial banking licenses. How many of our mother's Stokvels are starting mutual banks? Not very many. You know what I mean? Imagine if all the community Stokvels in just one part of Tembisa, one part of Soweto, one part of Alexandra started putting their money together in their own mutual banks. Do you understand? As a neighborhood, you know? That would be better. You know what I mean? If the churches started doing that, you know what I mean? The bank yamanazarete yasemkungundlovu. Let's just say. It's Amanazareta that are in PMV. They start their own bank.
Dogfeld.
You know what I mean?
Putting money together.
That's it. So that's what we need to start doing. The Black Church is the most useless financial institution.
I agree.
It's underutilized.
I agree, bro.
You know what I mean?
When you look at the other community, they meet every day, every Friday at 12 o'clock. Doesn't matter, no matter how much money you're going to give them, whatever deal you close, at 12 o'clock noon on a Friday, you can never see them because they're at the mosque. And then you also have got that other community that also, and that's where they discuss the most important matters as to where their community goes to, at church. Because they discuss these finances and they discuss, because we own this, this is what we're going to do. Y'all are going to bank with us because we've done well. We're older. We're going to fund all of your initiatives, but y'all are going to have to use their trucks. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just kept around here. But tonight in our community, you are correct. Like, we are very useless because the pastor, all that money just goes to them. Yes, there are some incredible black churches where the money does incredible work in the church and it also benefits the community. But most churches, when the pastor, the money keeps rolling in, they enrich themselves.
Well, I look at it like this. I feel like I judge a church by the community that surrounds it. You know what I mean? And too many churches are trying to, you know, be beacons in their communities because of their opulence. But the rest of the community around them is disintegrating. And as that community disintegrates, the spiritual guidance and the leadership that people start coming for is not spiritual guidance for them to progress in their life and pursue their purposes. It's more spiritual guidance in desperation. You know what I mean? You're serving lost souls instead of being a guide and helping those who are in the journey to their destination, to their purpose, helping them navigate. You know what I mean? And that's the role that the church should be playing. At the time where Big Nom Zabala's, the church played its role. You know what I mean? And it knew what role it had. And that's because the enemy was clear. The enemy is now within. The enemy is temptation, personal desires. You know, the enemy is being distracted. The enemy is lack of discipline, you know. And these higher ideals are not being presented as enough of an accomplishment for people to aspire to them. You know, if you say, I just ran a 21-kilometer half marathon and you post about it, you know, yes, you'll get a couple hundred likes. But if you say, I just got a Ferrari or whatever the case may be, you'll get even more likes, which shows you that we value what money can do more than what people can accomplish, you know. And that makes us role modeling the right type of characteristics that we'd like to see in society very, very difficult. Because just as you're trying to show someone, hey, here's someone that's pursuing their passion, here's someone that's moving with Christ or, you know, moving in a faithful manner, someone will pull up in the latest car from wherever the case may be, and they will take all the attention. You know, so we need to have higher ideals. You know what I mean? Like, let me put it to you like this. We need to have Abo Sester who never get into a car that's passing by. That needs to be the value. It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's a GTI, M4, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? We need to have our brothers that never see themselves objectifying women. You know what I mean? I'm just making an example of something like that. But they hold themselves to higher ideals. You know what I mean? They don't need someone to come in there and tell them, oh, this is how you should conduct yourself. This is how you should behave, you know. And I feel like, yeah, man, you need to find your church, or you need to find your spiritual guidance. You need to find some form of leadership. I was watching another lady that I first saw on Penwell's Convo. I think her name is Usihle. I subscribe to her channel. And she's always talking about, you know, slay queens, destroying themselves and everything else. But I mean...
Oh, Usihle is amazing.
Yeah. She made an episode which I found really touching. You know, which I think, what are these guys? Open chats. The Ashkara and the Banganoe. Ashkara and the Banganoe need to see what Sihle, it's
Congratulations, guys. Great work. I think DSTV now.
Yeah, we'll discuss that just now. SIHLEEEY. So it's Sihle with a triple E and a Y. So she dropped a video about a lack of male accountability. And just as I was talking about, you know, a lot of the things that we're seeing that might not be the most constructive examples that we see, it's very easy to create ratchet content online and get views. You know what I mean? And so, you know, one of my mentees is Azanian Doll, so she's gone on that platform a lot of times. So I've watched all the episodes with her. So what I was seeing from the young men, right, is that because there's a little bit of a contagion in the red pill content that we're getting from the US and all over the world, actually, UK, whatever, men going their own way.
MGTOW.
Yeah. That men going their own way is a response to, you know, the feminist wave that took over. So it's like, okay, feminism is about being extreme and unreasonable. We'll also have a counter to that. And
That's when Kevin Samuels and them blew up.
You understand? As a counter to that. But it was a counter to something.
Coach Greg Adams.
It was a counter to something to try and bring balance. What you found right now is because the feminist ideals were just a bad idea and they were not self-sustaining and they couldn't support themselves going forward. Right now, the red pill, men going their own way wave is overpowering everything, and masculinity is self-defining in this current context. You know what I mean? Some people think the epitome of masculinity is Andrew Tate. Other people feel like their masculinity is epitomized by Will Smith. You know what I mean? Let's say on opposite ends of the spectrum.
And others would say Will Smith is a simp.
Yeah, that's the other side of this. But others would say he's a good man.
I understand.
You know what I mean? So there's this whole entire spectrum. And we're getting lost in whatever is bringing in views. We're excited by the Ferrari. So if the Ferrari is the views right now, I'm doing whatever it is that I can do to have a Ferrari on my timeline. You know what I mean? And I'll use this as an example. Ghost Ruby, great YouTube content creator, right? A lot of the viewers were there for whatever gimmick that he could come up with whether it be a car or whatever. And he knows how to use that to get views, you know what I mean, and build a business around that. And other people will then start copying that because they see it's successful. The thing is that they didn't originate it. Ghost Ruby knows what he's doing. He knows how he's playing it to the audience. But the person who's copying Ghost Ruby doesn't know what he's doing. They're seeing what they feel Ghost Ruby is getting right, and they're trying to replicate that. And maybe it results in views. But because you didn't come up with this concept, you didn't come up with the idea, you're just copying. You're not going to fulfill it with the purpose of the person who originated that idea. So as we're seeing a lot more content coming up, I'm watching open chats and I'm like, ish, my young brothers, I feel like now that they're starting to see more opportunities, they need to watch their content in reverse and watch it back and think to themselves, what are their daughters going to say about them when they get to watch that content? I don't want to go too far into that. I don't want to say it, but every time you guys record an episode, think that 20 years from now, your daughter's going to be watching this, and is this something that you'd be proud of your daughter learning? You know what I mean? Even the type of discussions that you have on the platforms, doesn't matter with who you're having them with. Is this the type of role models you'd like for your daughter as well? And I think that will guide everything else. I mean, I said the same thing to MacG when I was a guest, when he was getting his 100,000 plaques. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he said to me, but you don't have kids. What would you know? People who don't have kids doesn't mean they don't know anything about raising kids. You need to understand that everyone was a kid at some point in time.
Yeah.
I have parents. You know what I mean? And the way they raised me is the way they taught me how children should be raised.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So I told him that you're doing all this content the way you're doing it now, right? But I bet you'll change your mind the day you have a daughter.
Yeah.
And he didn't agree with me.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks back, I have a daughter now, so some of these things. You understand what I'm saying? I have a daughter now, and it's the very same thing. I'll use a completely different idea. Kanye, he's crying right now. His daughter was featured in something that is not age appropriate for his liking. His ex-wife has trademarked the names of his children, all of those sorts of drama. But when now you're complaining about inappropriate things being done to your daughter, people then say, yeah, but at the Grammys last month, you were with someone else's daughter. You understand what I'm saying? How do you think her father feels?
Yeah.
And now the shoe's on the other foot. So when you don't want your daughters to be exploited. And you know what? I know that it's a bad example because you know what? When it comes to him and his wife, they're adults. It's a completely different case. You know what I mean? They're adults. They're a couple. What he's complaining about is his children. you know what I mean, and being put in jeopardy. But the mere fact that people have got his own actions to use as ammunition to discredit his very valid pleas should be concerning for him. People will have less empathy. So, you know, the guys that open chats, I hope, you know, they get to see this, and I hope that they consider the type of impression they're making of young women on the young men that watch their content. You know what I mean? The young men that are their fanboys and everything else. After watching that content, what do those young men then think about women? What do those young men say about women? You know, and for me personally, I get abused a lot. People say, "Oh, Nota, you say you don't like women. You say all these things." And you know what? I'll tell you one thing about me. There is not a moment in my life I have not shown that I love women, I care for them and their well-being, and especially black women. If I call out something, you know, there was a whole lot of drama, people saying, you know, they took a clip out of context and they said I made a bad comment about Mihlali at some point in time. What they forgot to think about is that, why is Nhlamulo saying this? What is the point that he's trying to get across? The point that I was trying to get across at that point in time is that what we're seeing role modeled.
What had you said about Sis Mihlali?
I was saying that, you know, the type of men that date women because they give them money. You know what I mean? They throw money at them. They treat them like possessions. And one day it's all lovey-dovey. The next day, our sister is dead like a dog, left somewhere, burnt somewhere in a bush, found in a river. You name it. There's so many stories. We've heard all of them. You understand? And there's no one that doesn't love his sisters that will not call out a lot of the behavior that leads to them finding themselves in such situations continuously. You know what I mean? It's not like we're hearing the story of a girl that was hanged or whatever the case, something heinous happened, and then that's the last of it. Every single week we're bombarded with it. Something is happening. You know what I mean? And we need to look at everyone's behavior within our society. What is it about the behavior of a black woman that makes them lose the respectability politics, that makes them lose the humanity politics, where they're seen as, you know, disposable, or putting themselves in situations where their lives are in danger? What is it about the state of, especially a lot of the black men, that makes them feel like they've got a right to abuse our sisters? They've got a right to take our sisters' lives. You know what I mean? We need to look at that, and we need to look at that objectively. A lot of the so-called feminists that would criticize me and say, you know, you speak badly about women, they never say anything when I'm criticizing men. And I do so a lot. You know what I mean? There's no one that is beyond the critical eye. You know what I mean? Or there's no one that's not fair game when it comes to me. You know what I mean? When I just look at the society that we're living in and how I can contribute to pointing out the things that I feel like are failures on our part and in our conduct. So they are unfair in that assessment. But also, when it comes from men, and I'm speaking about the bad things that we as men do, men don't attack me and say, hey, Samuro, you should be sticking up for us. You know, you should be blindly loyal, you know, which is concerning. So we need to look at the way in which our society right now absorbs women of any guilt for their conduct and their actions. Whenever a woman does something right now, we are more likely to try and find reasons as to why she did it. And we are more likely to remove her from the responsibility of her own actions, whether she's an adult or not. You know what I mean? And that's also problematic. Because young men are watching this and observing this, and they're seeing that, oh, so there's no consequences for women. Women can do A, B, C, and D and get away with everything else, which means this world is unfair. And that is going to make people see women as adversaries. And there are people that benefit from this adversarial relationship that we're having, and they're not us. We're not making things better. We need to look at all the efforts that are being put into socializing men and women to live more harmoniously and analyze whether they are, number one, effective, number two, whether they're not counterproductive. A lot of the things that I'm seeing happening are counterproductive. They don't serve the purpose. It's like US aid. You know what I mean? It was supposed to help international development, but we find that most of the money wasn't reaching the final destination or the intended destination and was used for other nefarious actions, and people were taking advantage of that. So right now, the cause of protecting Black women must not be taken advantage of. Our country is also on the top of the list when it comes to human trafficking. You know what I mean? We know our history dating back from the 16th century or 17th century onwards. There's been women that have been abused. You know what I mean? There's women like Sis Mandisa Mashego, who I was speaking to last week, who feel betrayed and abandoned, and who feel like the type of masculinity that they desire and that they want to see being expressed is not there. You know what I mean? And who can be blamed for that? The men need to be blamed for that. And we need to look at ourselves and say, how many of our brothers are being left behind as we progress, as people? And look at what interventions are we making to ensure that we progress better. At the beginning of the episode, I spoke about Pastor Mabalani's home cell. He's making an intervention. You've got this platform. You're making an intervention. MacG's got his platform. You know what I mean? It's now on DSTV. He's made an intervention in Joseph Diary's life, because now Joseph Diary is now on TV shooting with a phone. You know what I mean? Lasizwe is back on TV. You know what I mean? And he was previously, I think he was doing a show with MTV. Now he's on Mzansi Magic, back to the phone. DSTV has shown that digital is the future. They need to now capture the space by having some of the biggest platforms as part of their advertising offering. You understand? So when you look at this, you mustn't think to yourself that finally DSTV is co-signing. No. DSTV is understanding where the business is going. The advertising dollars right now, or the advertising rands, are with traditional media currently. But over the next 5 years, that trend is going to change. By 2028, digital should overtake traditional media. So all this value that we're building on all these platforms and all the people that are building platforms, it's value that is going to be traded on an open market and a fairer market. And once digital, is in the ascendancy and mainstream media, has got a smaller share of, media spend, then what will happen is that the perception of digital media will also change. People will stop thinking, oh, my favorite podcast is now on TV. That's an upgrade. You know what I mean? They'll start to think, oh, my favorite podcaster is now on TV. That means that it's of value enough that the TV channels are willing to pay to have it on their platform. You know what I mean? Not that should be an aim. I mean, I remember when MacG was doing interviews for Channel O. You know what I mean? We were busy brainstorming, and we came up with the idea that he should sell his interviews, his celebrity interviews that he was doing on Thursdays to Channel O. And we're still having this discussion when Deza was still at Channel O. He's now at MTN now. I guess for the space, if you look at how that whole entire thing came into being, MacG was on Crazy Kids TV. Deza, his wife, was on KTV as well. not KTV, sorry, on Yo TV, Karabon Tsweng. She's now on media. Deza then works in television productions for MultiChoice and everything else, and he's able to understand the value of this podcast and take the risk. Okay, let's put this podcast on TV. And they did a couple successful episodes, right? But there was one episode in particular which they knew was going to go viral and was going to test the limits of their deal on TV, and that was the Jube Jube episode that came about. You know what I mean? So after the Jube Jube episode, the controversy that followed that whole entire episode, the plan of selling the interviews to Channel O then came undone. Deza, who was the guy who was actually driving it, he left for MTN as well. So the mere fact that the idea was able to stand the test of time and be revived shows the consistency of MacG. You know what I mean? Whereas someone would have thought, okay, that opportunity is lost at first instance, right? That's because he wasn't at the stage where he could dictate terms, where television would play by his rules. Now he's got a lot more leverage. Now he's a lot bigger than that. You know what I mean? At that point in time, Jube Jube was bringing viewership to him. Now he's bringing viewership to DSTV. So that is the transition. And we need to look at these things holistically and not look at, just small and trivial things. Obviously, this is groundbreaking and is a game changer for everybody within the space. It shows that the people that are still the independent creators in the space, there's something of value that they are creating that can then get them to either partner with traditional media or partner with some of the bigger brands. And the opportunity herein is that should this be a success, it will accelerate the transition from traditional media to digital media. At the same time, should this not be a success, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that digital media will shrink. The creators are still there. So there's nothing really to lose with what they're doing. And I think it's encouraging, and we should congratulate them and also big up for not gatekeeping. You know what I mean? I don't know who was given but I know that the conversation started at the time that the episodes were being done for Channel O. So I know that MacG must have opened it up for other creators as well. And big up to him for doing that and giving them a platform and a space as well. And the last thing that I guess I wanted to talk about, especially today, is
the FBI files, the JFK files.
Look,
what?
I mean,
I know we've got about 5 minutes. Okay.
So I mean, the JFK files is still going to take some time. I'm still reading through them.
Okay, let's go through it next week.
Yeah, let's go through that when there's still something more concrete. For me, the biggest thing is the South African right wing. So the South African right wing, right, is basically catching the vapors from what's happening in the United States, and the right wing in the United States is agitating a lot. They've seen a victory over the left with Trump, but I wouldn't call Trump a right winger because he was supported by the unions, and he's adding tariffs, which are left wing policies, to protectionism, etc. Or traditionally left-wing policies. And it looks like he's working for the working class in America, right? But a lot of the rhetoric to his support base is very much white supremacist. Now, to say that he's a white supremacist, you know what I mean, would be an allegation and an accusation, and someone could find the evidence to back that up, but that's neither here nor there. What I feel like the former ambassador, Mr. Ibrahim Rasool, misspoke on is the characterization of Donald Trump and Elon Musk as extreme right-wingers or white supremacists. What I think that he should have focused on is the fact that a large proportion of their supporter base are white supremacists and right-wingers. And then he should have said that because of such a large component of their supporter base being right-wingers and white supremacists, it'll be very tempting for them to act to, I guess, appease that base and their desires and what it is that they want. So when he put it out there as like a straight accusation, it's just like giving Netanyahu a warrant. You know what I mean? You just called him a war criminal. You know, racism is like a war crime nowadays, you know. So you just can't do that. So I feel like that wasn't the most tactful move, you know. And as much as people are downplaying that whole entire thing, I feel, again, where are our big businessmen, our big BEE beneficiaries? Where are they to invest in telling the true narrative of what's going on in South Africa? They're nowhere to be found. You know, it was nice to see Mr. Mike Decker opening up a new coal facility in Mpumalanga, which is going to create 300 new job opportunities, you know. But at the same time, I feel like that's another opportunity in which, you know, a narrative could be told, a story could be told. We shouldn't be relying on SABC News or Newsroom or whoever it is coming there to find out about this thing, because they're going to use it in a news bulletin, which is 2 minutes long at most, you know what I mean, and not feature it. Meanwhile, you know, we haven't had someone of the level of, whether it be a Patrice Motsepe or Dr. Patrice Motsepe, Mr. Mike Decker, or anyone who's of that level, you know, sit down on a podcast and speak about what it is that they're doing. Because the kids are not watching Generations to learn about the advertising industry anymore, like we did. You know what I mean? They're not watching Isidingo to learn about the life of a mine which is going out of service, because that's what you learned in Isidingo. You know what I mean? Isidingo, unfortunately, the story of the human beings in this failing mining town, which is going down, superseded what was the initial intention, which should have been to actually tell a story about one of the most important industries and actually help young people see representation. You know what I mean? A young Parsons Matabane, you know, becomes a big jewelry designer, or whatever the case, or, you know what I mean, his sister ends up in mining engineering, whatever the case may be, and growing into those spaces. And that's what we're able to see on TV. But now, you know, we've got Takalani Sesame, which we're copying from Sesame Street, which is, I don't know whether it's going to continue because they've lost a lot of their funding with Trump's new edition. And we've lost the blueprint of what we're creating now. Because when Sesame Street goes under, then the thing that we're copying, which is Takalani Sesame, which is another edition of Sesame Street, where does that stand and fit in? And that's exactly what I feel we need to observe. When we watch the right-wingers, the white right-wingers in South Africa, they are trying to build on something that is populist within the Western world. There's no way any of the white right-wingers' ambitions can be popular in South Africa. They don't have the numbers. You know what I mean? There's no way what Ronaldo Hos believes will be voted for by 70%, 60%, 50%, 10%, 5% of the country. No way. You understand? So it's not a threat, and that will never get a popular voice to back it up. What Rob Hersoff has been saying, you know, on all these international trips, it'll never get a popular backing. The Cape Independence Party themselves saying that, no, they want to separate the Western Cape from South Africa. I mean, I gave them an ear. I listened to them. I've spoken to Phil Craig. I've visited him, you know, a lot of times. But his initial play was to contest in elections. They contested in those elections. They did not get a mandate. You know what I mean? It was not popular. So right now, what they're doing by going overseas to speak to Trump and whoever his right-wing advisors are is treasonous. You know what I mean? It's the exact same thing as AfriForum. And they're doing this because they know that their views are not popular in South Africa. So for the black people that are observing this, you need to understand that the white supremacists have given up. They are going to their father or their spiritual father or who they think is their spiritual father in Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Because a lot of his support base is white supremacists. And a lot of his support base are supporting these people as well. So they feel like they've got an audience that's willing to listen to them, right? Those views are not even popular in the United States amongst white people. They are on the margins, the right wingers in the United States. You understand? They've got someone who's used them for votes while also using other people for votes and coming in with an agenda that suits them in some ways, but in a lot of ways, you know, their real issues are more structural within the American economy. America doesn't produce anything anymore. You know what I mean? And that's why the economy is on a downward trajectory. So the downward trajectory that the United States is on is based on the fact that they cannot manufacture anymore. China is killing them on manufacturing. You know what I mean? The legacy brands in America are dying out. They don't know what they're doing anymore. You know, there's only one car brand that is the leader in the United States, which is Tesla. And that's coming against a lot of opposition. You know, there's protesters that are burning Teslas, vandalizing their dealerships, scratching cars and all that case and all that jazz. You know, the demand is falling in Europe for their electric cars. Locally, VW is saying that they're facing challenges from the Chinese auto manufacturers, you know, and they're taking a lot of market share. Trump is saying he's going to increase the tariffs to protect his local auto manufacturers, to protect his country's local industries, right? And we are observers of all of this. And funnily enough, you know, I don't know if you saw this, but Lesotho announced that they're considering raising VAT in line with the increase in VAT in South Africa and their taxes as well, in line with what's happening with taxes in South Africa. And when you see it in that contagion, you know what I mean? It's a bit of a joke. Not to say that Lesotho, the country, is a joke or the people are a joke, but it's kind of funny when you think of a country that wants to stand for itself and determine its own future, that wants to now copy another country. And Dan Corder put it well, is that white people are able to live in South Africa as if it's an outpost of some other Western country. It's an outpost of the UK. It's an outpost of the United States. So they're in South Africa, but they live their lives as if they're in America. They watch American TV, they listen to American music, they listen to UK music.
I saw that clip.
Yeah.
Incredible clip.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And they don't integrate themselves within the society. And that's why it's so easy to fool them, because, you know, they're very tribalistic in their thinking. And that's also why Dan Corder himself finds himself very challenged, because when you act against a tribe or a tribal mindset, they strike you hard. You know what I mean? You threaten them. Their ignorance dominates the way they see themselves, and therefore they see everyone as a threat. And right now, those right-wingers that are copying everything that they're seeing from America, they're losing their place. They're losing their relevance because they're copying and pasting. All of a sudden, now they're talking about DEI in South Africa. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, we've never had anything called DEI. You're copying it directly from America and you're saying DEI policies. You know, again, they're copying the lying and repeating the lies from America. So they've got this lie, 142 race-based laws, and they don't explain what those race-based laws are, but they're repeating it each and every single time. It's as if it's a catchphrase. And if you watch American politics and you see how the Democrats employed the talking points, they'd repeat each and every single talking point. If they're going to call Trump, he's got 47 felonies or whatever, 57 felonies, he's got 57 felonies.
All the channels, CNN, what.
We'll say that.
Saying the same
So that's
thing,
the thing, the 142 Royce laws. But these people are stupid because they've gotten so used to just copying America and thinking that they live in this South African outpost of America. You know what I mean? Yes, we can listen to 94.7 and we listen to American music and we don't need to listen to Maskandi on 94.7. You know what I mean? Or we don't even need to know what Maskandi is on 94.7. Johnny Clegg is not played on 94.7. You know what I mean? So they live like that and they're thinking that they can do the same thing within our politics. Those politics are not popular here. They'll never be popular here. They will never have the numbers here. So everything that they're doing is just a wasted effort. It's an effort in futility. They need to know that they're able to guarantee votes or they're able to rig elections if they have any hope of getting anywhere with what they want. So that's why, for me, when I see people saying, using a clip of Sis Mandisa Mashego saying she loves what she sees AfriForum doing for its constituency, they say that and say, oh, you love and celebrate AfriForum. For me, when I look at AfriForum, I look at them as a fringe group whose views will never be popular in South Africa, who can never succeed in anything popular in South Africa, who can run to every mountain hill crying about whatever they're crying about, but no one will ever listen to them because they're lying. You know what I mean? So I do not see them as a threat. What I do see as a threat is the fact that, you know, us as Black people, in general, we're not working to ensure that our communities look better. Our communities are something to be proud of. You know what I mean? We need to raise our communities to a standard where we're not talking about our communities as places that we've overcome or that we've escaped, but we're taking those communities and looking at them as places that we've built, that we've taken from what they were, which is labor camps, you know, and places where Black people were never supposed to progress. And we are now investing in them to make sure that they're investable, that we can grow them and that we can create businesses and we can create ecosystems that can give us something to be proud of. You know what I mean? So now our mission for us, right, is that for those of you who were watching our last episode and felt like Sis Mandisa Mashego said some things that triggered you, your job is to prove her wrong, you know, about those things. Our job is to prove her wrong. You know what I mean? Because she was talking about all men, you know, she was saying that us as Black men were the weakest among all men in the world. So we need to improve our condition. You know what I mean? We need to guard our reputations more jealously, and we need to improve our characters as well. So that is the legacy that we're creating. You know what I mean? I think that my generation, as a generation of young people, we're the ones with the most opportunities and we're the ones that can squander the most. You know, we've got the most to lose. The generations that are coming up now are the first generations, like I said, that are going to be earning less than their parents. They're the first generation that are going to have less heritable wealth, you know, to pass on when they are elderly. And while this is happening, there's a generation of wealthy people that are about to inherit the greatest amount of wealth at the same time. So the inequality between Black and white is only going to grow bigger, you know, and the biggest determinant of whether someone is going to be successful between 1930 and the 1980s was predominantly hard work, which wasn't the case prior to that, you know, which wasn't the case during the feudal times. So all the progress that was made since the Great Depression has been lost. Now the greatest determinant of whether someone is going to be successful is their heritable wealth. Again, you know what I mean? So we've gone through a process of, I guess, 90 years of consolidating wealth in a few hands, in fewer and fewer hands. and the elite right now have the world as their oyster, and the rest of us are just, I guess, occupying it. And we need to wake one another up. You know what I mean? We need to wake up the masses in general. We need the workers to wake up, and in this country, one day the workers are going to be the minority because the unemployment is even more stubborn than it has ever been right now. So we need to have some semblance of a revolution. You know what I mean? And hopefully it'll be a bloodless revolution. Hopefully we'll be able to discuss our issues. Hopefully we'll be able to set the narrative for our society. Hopefully we'll be able to overcome our personal differences and get people to sign up to this project of making a unified South Africa a success. And platforms like this contribute towards doing that. So people that are creating content, people that are having discussions online, I'd like to encourage a lot more of them to come and join us on this journey. The opportunities are abound. You don't need to prepare a CV. You don't need to go for an interview, a job interview. You can just hire yourself and start creating and start making progress and growing the space and growing the pool. And you can contribute to ensuring that everybody else has got a livelihood to make out of this content creation space. So yeah, shout out to everyone that's in the space. And shout out to you. Thank you for another episode.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. When are we getting another guest?
Mondays belong to the authority. You going to the Thames show?
Yeah.
There's lots of guests.
Yeah.
Just you were busy this week.
Yeah.
I wanted to do one with Sisintiki, but I think you are not available on the day. I did one with her.
Oh yes.
I wanted you to do one with Darren Kempfer.
Oh yes. I was busy early.
Yeah, and it's cool. Don't worry. We'll do more later. I also wanted you to do one with Rob Herzog.
Oh yes.
I think that would have been dope. But yeah,
yes, I watched him doing one with a mate of mine. Did you do it with him?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
One with Rob Herzog.
Ah, nice.
But you know what? Like, I think we're onto something, and it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys, for supporting the NOTA Mondays. I think it's incredible, and we're appreciating the support. This is only early days. We're only getting into our second month of doing this. It can only grow with your guys' support. We do it every Monday at 12 o'clock, and then we drop all the other episodes Wednesday and Friday at 12 o'clock. So 12 midday Wednesday, 12 midday Friday, 12 midday on Mondays. And then we'll see where the journey takes us. But for me, the most important days are Mondays because this podcast is built on the Monday show.
Oh, nice.
So it does belong to NOTA. Proud of you, bro. And enjoy your birthday. Enjoy Thames. Are you still going to the Thames?
Yes, of course. I'm going to free my mind. I won't lie, I'm a big Thames fan. Very big. Very big. They wanted to buy me an Arsenal jersey. That's yo. Now I have to walk around with a team that's not going to make it into the top 4. Hi. They wanted to buy me all these funny things. Soccer jerseys are now the new gifts that people buy to people. I was like, no. I'd rather have a memory. So for me, Thames is going to sign me out on my birthday. And that's nice. You know what I mean? And she's also... I remember when we spoke about Thames cancelling the show in Rwanda.
Yeah, in Rwanda, yeah.
This is the makeup for that show.
I remember, yeah.
You understand? Yeah. So I gave her praise. I was like, shout out for cancelling Rwanda. And then she says, no, for your birthday. I'll do that. Uzwakalele bani kanti? Phela umazi uThems ufundele ngaseKasilam phela.
Ufundele eMonash, you know?
Yeah, ngiyazi phela ngaseKasilam.
Ungibulale last week nagathi no, yeah, we used to make bombs back in the day. And since Mandisa says like, yeah, petrol bombs, and NOTA is like, no, I used to make lead mines.
Yeah. No.
Happy birthday, bro.
Thank you. No, petrol bombs, and a shout out. There was a day we made a spirits bomb out of methylated spirits, and it exploded, and my brother was still too close to it, and then it set him on fire. But I told him to stop, drop, and roll, and I rolled him over, so he didn't get friends or anything. But the beating that my mother gave me. Yeah, she gave me my mother gave me a serious beating that day for like, well, how can you do that to Zobula Lumtanam? You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm also your child. You know what I mean? But it was that was the last time I made a bomb with my little brother. I decided that, all this bomb making I need to do myself.
All this bomb making.
I need to do myself. It's my little brother. I invited him to come to the Thames show today because when I was a kid we used to go to concerts together. But he's working now. We're grown. He's turning 33 on the 9th of April, which is not too far away. So shout out to him. Shout out to Thames. Shout out to you. Happy Human Rights Day. Happy birthday to Namibia. All our hustlers in Namibia. You guys used to be South Africa. The day I was born, you were part of South Africa. The day after,
Southwest Africa.
Yeah, German Southwest Africa. You know what I mean? You guys were part of our country the day I was born. The very next day, you weren't a part. Yeah. So you guys are also turning 35 along with me. Shout out.
Thank you guys for showing us love on Saturday at the Radio 2000 Family Day. It was really dope to do our first official pop-up store for the MG's Kitchen. We got a lot of love. We sold out all the food, all the platters. You guys are loving the menu. You guys are founders or are co-founders of the brand. That's what we'll call you, our co-customers. Our first 1,000 customers. We registered each and every client that bought MG's Kitchen this past Saturday. So we will be doing pop-up kitchens at different events throughout the country. We'll also be at a lot of street food markets. You can order us online starting from Easter Monday. You can go to Uber Eats and order the menu from MG's Kitchen. Everything that we cook here for our guests, you can order it over there. We're starting a new brand, NOTA. And thank you for walking the Mofa journey with me, supporting me through thick and thin.
No problem.
Let's build a new brand now. See you rocking the MG's Kitchen shirt.
So how many is MG's Kitchen? In which range does Uber Eats deliver to?
So for now, we're only online around the Sandton area. Sandton, Bryanston, Rosebank, just around Sandton. Yeah. And then we just wanted to see the demand because we understand that people are online. It's a new era, right? So back in the day, you'd want to get a space at a mall or get a building and just like get lots of employees. But nowadays, you want to do it smart.
Oh, nice.
You also want to limit your losses.
Nice.
So you want to be you want to run a lean ship. And as this thing grows online, as the orders grow and as the demand grows, then you can start launching it maybe in Midrand, start launching in Pretoria, start launching in Tembisa.
And what's your menu looking like?
The Val, it's African food.
So African food.
Yeah.
But when you say African food,
everything that we eat here. We eat quarters, we eat steak, we eat mkhodu, we eat nyama and khobo.
Oh, nice. Nyama and khobo. I love that.
We eat wraps as well. So, our platter is called a makoporosh. So you guys will see when you get into the menu, it's inspired by the legend of a successful Kwaito artist, MacG. And that's what the menu is inspired by. And I kind of feel also, to all of our legends, you guys are known. You guys have existing brands. The fact that you don't release music anymore with your brand, you can always use your brand to make a living, monetize it, man. Start a business or do something, start a product, sell something. And that's what we're doing. We're just celebrating the legacy of MacG. And people are loving it so far. It's been incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, and then the main goal eventually is to franchise it.
Oh, nice.
We're working with some professionals who've worked with other big brands who are very experienced in the space, who've been in the space for over 40 years, Abandabadala.
Nice.
And the main goal is to franchise it, let it go all over the country. You can't start a business with a small mind. You have to have a very big dream and a very big vision.
Nice.
And that's what we're doing. But what's nice is that they both complement each other with more fire. So every meal that you buy on MacG's Kitchen, you get a free complimentary can of more fire. And then if you buy our platter for 6, it's called a makoporosh, you get a 6-pack of Mofai. Even if you don't drink energy drinks, don't worry, you're getting it for free. Just give it away. It's okay.
So, I just need to tell my dad. Sorry, Papa, nlekruk who did. Dam phone look net. Shop. Hey, Tamala. Happy birthday. Yeah, so no, dope. You know what? As you were just speaking there, I just came up with a crazy idea.
Let's do it.
You don't need to
consider it. No, it's done already.
I just thought, Uber Eats is now delivering food from Woolworths, from engine garages. So if you give people the menu, They can order ingredients on Uber Eats from Woolworths, wherever they are, because they're not in the Sandton region, and they can show whether they can also make their own MG's kitchen plate.
That's a dope idea.
You know what I mean?
So we can partner with the filling stations.
Yeah.
And have our kitchens at these garages.
Yeah.
Uber Eats guys can collect in the nearest filling station for that area.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Radius, right?
That's it.
I like that.
That's it.
See, that's why I love it, man. I love hanging around NOTA. And I love hanging around the guys that are behind the camera. They're all young.
Yeah.
They all keep me young and they give me fresh ideas all the time. That's why I'll forever be a relevant OG. That's why I'll always kill it in the game, because I always feed off of the creativity of the young niggas, you know? Appreciate you guys and I love you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, the reason why I was mentioning that, sorry, I forgot to mention, is because PIC, since the Woolworths share price has just dropped down, bought more shares in Woolworths, and now they're the main shareholder. So PIC, if your mother's a teacher, worked for the government or anything else, your mother's pensions. So all of you kids that's parents worked for the state, their pensions bought 20% of Woolworths from 15%. So you guys all own shares in Woolworths. Next time you go there and they tell you that they don't accept cash, you must tell them that, hey, my mother's a teacher and a shareholder in this Woolworths. You will accept cash today.
But you know how we started this, right?
How?
A month ago, I told guys on the podcast, like, we're starting a new venture. It was an idea.
Seriously.
We didn't have money to start it.
Nice.
And then I did some videos. On one of the episodes, I think I recorded it with you at M.
Yeah.
We did a video and I told our audiences, guys, we're starting a new business, a new venture. Anyone that's interested.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yes.
Hit us up.
How?
And then we've had some more.
Target market getting a man.
Bana you.
No, yes. Mina bengilalela uringa uthi no mawune meter nyana one 200 stina ngathi eh.
I said 1% is an equivalent of 200,000 rand.
Yeah.
And some people are like, you're already valuing this stuff. Give me loan.
I nami ngithi nasibuda mfana.
But it's already.
Wawungangifaki. Now ufuna ngiphe 200K.
You know you are in. Relax.
No, thank you, sir. I know. At least now I know who we're talking to. No,
you know, you guys are partners. You're in. You guys know yourselves. And for those who did not get an opportunity to become shareholders on this brand new venture that we're on, we'll find a way to create a stokvel, because our venture also will be investing in its own real estate. So your money and your returns are always guaranteed, because the dividends or the revenue that we generate through the business will be invested in real estate and property. You know, like when you look at a company like McDonald's, which are one of my inspirations, you just think burgers and burgers, but people know that's a property company, right? So
not only McDonald's, I mean, there's another company right now that is, in some restructuring, Red Lobster.
Yeah.
I think people need to look up the Red Lobster story. I'm not going to get into it so much, but private equity bought their property company and they were able to then spin it off into another company. The same way they've broken up Eskom into 3 different parts. And their property company, their valuations went through the roof after the market crash, the mortgage market crisis. And they've been using that to bolster the value of the actual chain itself, Red Lobster. But then, because of how they were using that property investment, they ended up devaluing and degrading the original business. They've got a new CEO, a young black man, who's now the CEO of Red Lobster, and they're on a turnaround mission. But if you want to see the value of properties and how that contributes to your wealth or the wealth of a company like a food company, then please look at that and watch that, and then start looking at your own house differently. Start looking at the back rooms that you're able to rent out in your house Elokishin differently. Your property is the bulk of your value, of your net worth, and people need to start valuing their properties like an actual asset right now. It's not just a place you can live, it's a place that you can use to create an income. Work from home has turned the home into an office and the home into a business. So there's lots of people that might not be able to go to pop-up stores or whatever the case may be that can start their businesses. And I hope that MG's Kitchen is inspiration for a lot of them, you know what I mean? Because people don't even know what Mzega's face looks like. But they're going to eat his food.
16 June. Oh, sorry. 16 June is when we will be announcing. Yeah, it's going to be a Monday.
Yeah.
Monday, 12 o'clock. 16 June, Monday, 12 o'clock. We will be opening up our MG's Kitchen investment stokvel for those that might be interested to still be a part of this opportunity. That those that feel like the train has passed them, but there's still an opportunity where we're doing a crowdfunding platform where it's a stokvel where you can invest in this venture. That is if you believe in it. But we'll let you know the details as time goes along. The stokvel will only open for a month, and then we're going to close it, and then we're going to declare dividends once a year. We'll declare dividends 16 June 2026, our first dividends. But we'll give you the details as the time goes, because we'll be running webinars, all of that stuff, because this venture is not ours. It's for everyone. We're going to start it in Joburg. It's going to go to Pretoria and the whole of Gauteng, Makasi.
Manje New York.
And then, all over the world. That's where it's going to go eventually. All over the world.
Uja rule, mela vuli MG's Kitchen yake in New York. Uja rule, yeah.
It's African food.
Yeah,
I mean, at the other corner, there's a Nigerian food
there's an
outlet in America.
And we haven't seen that anywhere else.
There isn't South African food, but there's Nigerian food everywhere. In London, in Jamaica, in New York, in Chicago, in LA,
Yeah.
Nigerians are not playing, guys. So that's the vision, to take this global.
No.
But the main aim is the money is invested in real estate. That's the reason why I want to make sure that we secure our investors. But we'll give out the details as the time goes. But yeah, we're starting it. Brand new venture. Thank you very much for the love. God bless you. I appreciate you, my brother. Happy birthday.
We out of here. Peace.